All right, you're either gonna relate to me or think I'm super weird, but today, recording this, it's March 21st, so just a few days ago, and it's a special day for me. It's exactly 1 year since, for the first time in my entire life, or at least in the last 15 years, that I became a non-gym owner. I was in Toronto, Canada. I was at a BFU Mark Fisher event, and I had been negotiating and all that stuff. But on that day, March 21st, is when the contract was signed for me to sell the gym that I've been pouring into for 15 years. So it got me thinking last night as I was just sort of reflecting. It's crazy. I remember the beat feeling really weird. It was a mix of excitement and maybe a little bit of fear, but it's amazing what was ahead that I didn't even know. My current business, Fit Profit Solutions, has really evolved in such a wonderful way, and it's been an amazing year. And so that got my wheels turning, and I got up. It's a Saturday, and I got up really early. It was 4 something on a Saturday, and here I am. I wanted to record for you. I have a little bit of a backlog. I don't know what all podcast hosts do, but I like to have ideally a few just in case things pop up. So this one is kind of jumping the queue, and the reason why is I got really good feedback on the last episode. Probably it might have been the best feedback I've gotten. If I'm honest, I've got really good comments, and just people thought it was really helpful. It was about why most gym owners never get rich and what you can do about it, and they're just, I think, really sound principles and concepts. So we're going to kind of continue on a theme. I want to present a little bit of a case study. I'll try to be as specific as possible without sharing any details. But a guy comes to me, and he is got a lot of strengths, got a really solid team, which is really important. The culture is strong. Even the revenue is pretty strong. I'm not going to get into super specifics, but I would just say his revenue was solid, higher than most. What else? Really motivated, and just a really great guy, great character. But like a lot of gyms, was struggling with cash flow. There's the normal expenses that you think about, and there's some loan payments, some timing issues, and I actually referenced him on last episode. He gave some really cool analogies that I thought really did a great job of painting that picture. One of the things he said was he feels like he's at the bottom of a mountain staring up, and just like, man, like how am I gonna navigate this? And it really hit me. It hit me right in the heart, and because I know how that could feel. So I want to share some levers that we're working through, and that I think can help you. I also shared in that episode. I'm not going to reshare it, so if you haven't listened yet, you can go back. I also shared how going back was over 15 years ago, where I was kind of let's just call it what it is. I was irresponsible. I was not paying attention. I was stuffing reality. I knew deep down that things were not good, but I just figured it'll work itself out somehow. Things just always have a way of working out, and while there may be some truth to that, there can be a lot of pain associated with that as well, which is what happened with me. I was waiting for the next thing to save me, the next deal, the next situation where I came into some money, and that never came. I shared what did come, which was 6'5" and covered in tattoos, and took my car because we were behind on the payments. And I kept thinking, yeah, this is going to be different. We're gonna figure this out, and it never happened. And I find that a lot of people need a trigger This guy I'm talking to you about also had a trigger, and that trigger is like, man, if this keeps going how it is, I'm going to have to face a painful reality that might look like bankruptcy. It might look like, for better or worse, like how I look. I mean, I think, yeah, it's obviously it's not ideal to think about what other people think, but I think that's also reality that, we don't want to be seen by our spouses, our family as, somebody that's irresponsible, a failure, whatever that is. Again, not to get too much into the psychology of that, but that is a thing. We do care what people think, and it's not always a bad thing. I want people to think that we have integrity and we're managing things well. So I want to share the 5 levers. And yeah, it's always great to say these are the 5 most important things. And yeah, that might sell more, but the reality is it does depend on the situation. So some of these will be really practical and applicable for you. They all will be helpful, but your specific situation might vary a bit. It's been said that personal finances are personal, and therefore there's not like necessarily always like exact frameworks that are going to be the same for everybody. Same thing with business. Business finance is also personal, even though that makes no sense. But it makes sense to me. It's different. There's different scenarios, and let's just get right into them. The first one, in this case, this guy had strong revenue, but we wanted to start there and really, number one, acknowledge that. Because I have, thinking of other clients as well, where, and this happened to me, where when things are going well on the revenue side, one, we could either not maximize it, so we just get kind of complacent and neglect the idea that somebody needs to make a sale every day. You're in business, you're the owner. I can reference the episode I did with Tim, the real estate mogul. This guy's got several $1 million businesses, and he says the number one thing he does every day is sales and prospecting. And that was just such a good reminder, and that for him, that's the case. And then you have a gym owner that's making $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month, and they're like, oh, I'm good now. I don't have to keep this. We do. We have to. It's one of the hardest things, because I talked about having a trigger, which causes you to get into action mode. That's what happened with me. Like, the car got repossessed. Okay, it's go time. Like I have to focus on what's important. I gotta get this taken care of. And then you get to a point where things are a little bit better, and you say, okay, now I'm good. But then before you know it, there's competitors. The pipeline dries up, people leave, because if there's one thing we are guaranteed in our businesses, it's that people will leave. And it doesn't always mean you're doing a terrible job, but it's just the natural progression of things. So we want to make sure we're keeping the pipeline full from a prospecting standpoint. You've been there. I know you have. We all have, where you do some prospecting, you get some new bodies in the door, and then you get busy servicing, and before you know it, it dries up, and then you're kind of this up and down. A couple of extra points there. I had somebody recently reach out to me, and it was such a good question. He said, man, I hear you just talking a lot about prospecting. He's like, what is that? And I thought that was such a good question, because yeah, we don't want to just assume. We want to make sure we're not playing what's called prospecting theater, which is like we're doing activities, we're posting things on social media, but we're not really trying to drive the sales conversations. And that's really what I shared with him, is that's what prospecting is. It's activities that are like directly related or potentially related to sales conversations. There's lots of other activities that are really good and really important, but when we're talking about prospecting, we want to make sure we're being clear about what we're doing, and starting with that clarity. So that's, what's currently coming in, where is it coming from? I mentioned the mistake of sort of taking the pedal off the metal, and it's okay to a certain extent. You just have to be aware of what you're doing before it's too late, because we need to know and remember that it's what we do today that, like, I had to share a personal example. I had a great conversation with somebody yesterday, and it wasn't really about sales or anything like that. We were literally just talking, and they expressed that they were interested in some of the services we offer, and it was just a good conversation. It wasn't anything crazy, but we also talked about the idea of like setting up something down the road, and that's the nature of a relationship business. It's what you're doing today, whether that is prospecting or just building relationships, that is going to equal your future results. So what's happening today? It's easy for us to make the mistake, and I did this with my gym, where okay, it's March and we had a great month. We made X amount of sales. That was really due to what we did in probably January or maybe even December, when we were starting to plant seeds and we're starting to get things in motion. And same thing is true on the other end. It's what we do today that will dictate our results in another few months from now. So we can call it a 90-day cycle, a 60-day cycle, a 30-day cycle, however your business works and your process. But keep that in mind. And just to drive home the point that is so easily missed, it's a lot of people just aren't clear on where they're going revenue-wise. We want to make sure that we have a target, and there's different ways to arrive at that. You can look at your year over year and look at where you're at in terms of your growth or lack of. You can figure out what's happening in the marketplace and in your exact business, what's going on in terms of promotions or activity, and make sure that it's not just in your head. One of my coaches, he says that if it's in your head, it's an idea, but if it's on paper, it's a commitment. So make it a commitment. You're either like trying to achieve a certain amount of sales, or you are. You're doing it. You're doing whatever it takes. You're not stopping until you get to that. You get to that point. That's Pearson's law, which is what gets tracked is going to improve, and it's important. Make sure when you're looking at that revenue target, you are trying to build in a little bit of a cushion too. So that there's an exercise I do with clients where we look at, what are all the expenses, and that might be the fixed expenses. It might be some other things, and our target revenue shouldn't necessarily be like exactly that amount. Because one of the most important things you can look at, another thing we do often with clients, is look at what's coming in over a period, how much cash is coming in over the next couple of weeks, and what's going out in those same couple of weeks, and then what is the margin there. If it's negative, then you are by definition like losing cash. If it's even, you are exactly even. And I'm going to get to another point which talks about the difference between profit and cash. But we always want to try to build in a cushion. Try to overshoot, and then if you don't make it, you'll still be okay. You don't want to like just barely break even on those sales goals. But looking at the different services, a big problem is chasing too many services. You're doing open gym and nutrition coaching and one-on-one training and large team training and online coaching, and again, I'm not gonna like say you could only do this or only do that, because it does depend on your business. But there's a good chance, if you're like most people, you're trying to do too many things. So let's look at the 80-20 rule. Most cases, 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of the things you're doing, right? Or the amount of clients you have, right? Like they're coming from the small amount of effort that produces the biggest results. So looking at that and saying, okay, let's cut off these things so we can focus more on other activities. Action step for profit lever number one is to write down your realistic revenue goal. If you're listening to this as it's recorded, let's do that for April. And I'm also a big believer in doing it for the quarter. So now we're entering Q2. Write down that revenue target for quarter two and track against it. And I want you to track against it weekly, because if you track it monthly, it's kind of hindsight. But if it's weekly, we can get in front of it. Okay, my target for April is 50,000. So I want to hit a $50,000 month. And after the week number one, I did 10,000. Okay, I'm a little behind, right? So I got to figure out what am I going to do here to boost things, or maybe recalibrate, whatever that is. Okay, lever number two is really important, and it's really missed, and that is that profit is not the same as cash. Let me explain what I mean. So profit is a P&L result. Remember, your P&L is your one of your most important financial statements. It's showing you how much the business brought in. It's showing you what the expenses were. Your profit, by definition, there are a lot of terms, obviously, when it comes to finance, accounting, business. Profit is an accounting term. It's your net income, your profit. It is the number that's on the P&L. And it's a common scenario for someone to say, even in this example I'm talking about, it's I'm making $10,000 in profit. Where is it? That's a common scenario, right? I owe taxes because I was profitable to this extent. And where's that money? If I was profitable, I should have the money. And that's where the awareness needs to come in here, that cash is a different thing than profit. So cash is what's in the bank, and profit is what's on your P&L. So you can be very profitable on your P&L and still be low on cash. You can be not as profitable and have cash, right? So they need to both be tracked. But they're two different things. There's timing issues, and what I mean by that, the big one is with credit cards. When you swipe your card to pay for something for your business, assuming it's a legitimate business expense, that is going to show up on your P&L as an expense. But then you actually haven't actually paid for it yet, right? That goes as an expense. And then when you make the payment, it doesn't show on your P&L because it's after the fact. You've already taken the expense, so that's going to now show up on your balance sheet. That's why it's important. I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here, but that's why it's so important. And we've been doing more and more of this, full disclosure. So if you need support here, if there's one thing you can trust me with, it's don't settle for like false numbers, improper bookkeeping. If you're on the newer side, let's say you're 10K or under, it's a great time to do it because you're building a foundation. It's a mistake. I compare it to the clients that say, "Oh, I need to get in shape before I come to your gym." No, you need to get these things in place, and then you'll get in shape. You need to come to the gym, start these habits, and that's how it works. The same thing. You're never going to be ready. It's never going to be the right time. When you're starting your business is the time to get your books squared away. And I've seen so much of this nonsense where, we've been in business 7 years and our balance sheet is totally wrong. I had this just yesterday working with a really high level client. And if she has this happening that I know that so many others do, but she has just things that are on the balance sheet that shouldn't be. There's income statement transactions. There's so many things. There's payroll. There's loan payments and balances, taxes. There's, like I said, sometimes transfers are recorded improperly. Sometimes there's the fees that are associated with the payment processor, like Stripe or something like that. There's sales tax payable, which is entered improperly. This is what happens when either you're doing it yourself or you're doing it to somebody who either doesn't know, they're like a family member, or just somebody that just doesn't have an understanding of how the bookkeeping and accounting work, especially in the gym business, and they're just quote unquote lazy, and part of that is because, if I just be totally frank, I know you trust me, and if not, that's okay. I still love you, but it's like at some level you get what you pay for. And I think that was the case with this last example, where she's not paying a lot for the bookkeeping, but it's really affecting her performance and it's affecting her ability to make decisions. So it's, a lot of people will tell you, oh, just like, outsource it for like this, super cheap service. They can do AI and automate it. AI is definitely not there. I'm telling you now, I'm in this world and I'm looking at all of it. Yes, there's going to be a day where it does a lot more, but right now, it's not something that you should be trusting. And it's just like all the other things. It can help and it can support, but it's definitely should not be your strategy there. And if you like help with that, just let me know. I can look at your books. We can do like a discovery session to see how what kind of changes you can make, or if that makes sense. But it's just so important. It's a foundational thing. You're never gonna like beat that by just making more sales or anything else. We gotta build the foundation, and when you have that, then you could really see these things I'm talking about, the P&L versus the cash. If you don't have that, if you don't have a balance sheet, or it's wrong, or it's not updated, it's next to impossible to see what's actually happening. Shout out to client of mine, and this is a public testimonial he shared, so I can share his name. It's Mike, my buddy Mike out in Orlando. He was crushing it. He was bringing in a lot of revenue, top, let's call it top 10%, and he had hit his highest revenue month, but he couldn't make payroll. He had to decide: do I use my personal funds to cover payroll, or do I what am I going to do here? Do I delay it? And that's when we met. He signed up for a course, and still working with him today. And he's come a long way. Let's just say that. Now he's doing his cash flow forecast, which we talk a lot about. Budgeting is great, but we really want to track and forecast the cash flow. It makes all the difference, and helps. Doesn't mean business is easy. Doesn't mean there's no cash flow issues. We still have the ups and downs, but there's a lot more peace and a lot less anxiety when you actually know what's going on. And so yeah, I'm proud of that guy. The next one, the third one is on the expense side. So we talked about the revenue and the sales. We talked about the difference between cash flow and profit. But now we're going to talk about the outflows, because that's important too. We have to look at all these. Like, at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. There's, just like fitness, right? There's like calories in, calories out, and you can manipulate a certain amount of things, but it's relatively simple. It's just doing it and being consistent. So we're looking at what's going out, because you can never out earn like stupid decisions. Like and we know this. We've seen it in the big example back in the day was Mike Tyson, making $30 million a fight. What was that, in the 80s and 90s? And now, I mean, $30 million, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but it's a lot more than that now, with the way that the money system has gone. Side note, I just saw a stat. This is going to make you kind of sick probably, but a $100 bill in 1971 is now worth $11. So that's how much, that's how little power our money has now compared to that point in time. But that's a whole nother story for another different day. I might talk more about that if it's helpful. But number 3 is creating a lean expense roadmap. We need to be disciplined with our expenses, and we have to be careful with what we mean by discipline, because the very best businesses, they don't necessarily spend the least. They're just the most strategic with what they're spending. And they might look at, and I do this in my business. I'm not perfect. I have, full disclosure, I have 2 subscriptions that I knew I had, and I knew that I wasn't benefiting, and I knew that I was flushing money down the toilet. And they had been going on for longer than I'd like to admit. And this is me. I'm the finance guy. And one of them I just canceled. So, yep, there we go. A little bit of savings there. And then another one I still haven't, and it's because I have to do some things before I cancel it, and I just haven't done it yet. So there's my accountability to you, and it actually, interestingly enough, it has to do with the podcast. It's a podcast software that I don't need anymore because I have another service that takes care of it, but I just have to make some switches, and I just haven't done it yet. So we all have these things. I was a little bit or a lot inspired by Ed Milet. He shared that he goes through his expenses every so often. I think he said like every quarter or something. I mean, the guy's got like hundreds of millions of dollars, and he goes through his expenses. He's like, I don't care if I have hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't want to send $20 to this app that I'm not using. I'd rather give that money away or do something more valuable with it. And that's the mindset for wealthy people, is that they're not cheap, but they're just smart, and they want to use their money strategically. They understand how that works. So we want to look at the three different categories. There are the must-haves. I have to have my utilities paid. I have to have my rent paid. Some of these things can be negotiable, and that's going to be the third category. But you do have your must-haves, so list those out. Even if you're pretty organized here, you'd be surprised what you find. I actually track this every month, and it's just kind of cool for awareness. So there's the must-have expenses. Then there's the nice-to-haves, and those are okay. You're allowed to choose what you want to have as an expense. There are things that I have that maybe you wouldn't, that I just value for whatever reason, and I'm okay with them for now. And sometimes it's tricky. I think through things just like you do, but it's good to know the difference. So these are the things I have to have. These are things that are kind of discretionary. And finally, these are the ones that I can reduce or even eliminate. And in my case, it was the subscriptions. So even like quote unquote smaller numbers, I'm sure that we all have $100 of subscriptions that we're not using or that are not necessary. And you look at that, we have $100 and times that by 12, and that's over $1,000. And over 5 years, you think about how much that is, and that's really what it comes down to. The process of building financial freedom, building wealth. Yes, we can make a lot more sales and we can do all these things, but it does come down to just time and consistent decisions. They do add up. I'm telling you, from my experience of paying down over $100,000 in debt, I didn't do it with like these huge swoops. Did it over time with making these types of changes. So looking at that, making that list, and it's kind of cool at the end of the month. You can say, okay, this is our profit. I'll say it was $10,000 in profit we made, and we also had like $5,000 in nice to have expenses. And that doesn't mean that you should reduce those expenses, because part of life is having things that you enjoy. It's not just like gaining every dollar you can, but it's kind of cool to know, like, yeah, had we not had those expenses, like I do this a lot with, not as much this year, but I like to get out there, go to different events. Yes, it's a form of marketing, but more importantly, I just enjoy it. I like learning. I like connecting with people. So I have an exorbitant line item of those kinds of things. But sometimes I look at that and say, if I hadn't done those, then this would have been the case. And for no other reason than just having an awareness, I think is good. I'm trying to give you an action step for each one. So the first one was to write down your revenue goal. The second one was to know the difference between your profit and your cash. So for that one, the action step would be to get your books squared away, because if this is what I do, and a very small amount of studio owners have their books done properly. Even the ones that think they do, really it's way smaller than I'd like to admit. Even the high level ones, the ones you see that look like they're crushing it on social media, it's very often not good. But this third one on the expense side is just circle one expense you could trim without hurting your client experience. If it's helping you to either gain more clients or enhance the client experience, or even just grow yourself, because the best way you can grow your business is to grow yourself. But I will say that make sure that you're not just telling yourself that, but it's actually doing that. Because a lot of times, again, it's theater, right? We say, oh, we're doing this and it's helping us do this so that we can grow the business, but then I'm not really doing that. So I want to make sure that you're actually taking advantage of that. Number 4, it's more about knowing your numbers. the accounting is the language of your business. So you want to make sure that you know your numbers and you know your break-even cost. And when you know that, it's powerful because then you know like how much you need to create more cushion or margin and to reach some other financial goals that you have. A super simple formula. If you're taking notes, if you're driving, don't take notes, but it's your total monthly costs. So let's do some quick math. Grab my trusty calculator. My total monthly costs. How much in this made up scenario? Let's say our monthly costs are $20,000, and we have to know what's called our ARM, our average revenue per member. That would be the total that's billed for your clients divided by the number of clients that you have. So let's say in this scenario, we have $20,000 of monthly costs, and we divide that by our average revenue per member. And let's say it's $350. So divided that by $350, 20,000 divided by $350 is 57. So that means we need 57 clients. That gets us to that break-even point. And I didn't say this, but that the monthly cost should include your pay, right? Because a lot of times we do this without that, and then we're like, no, that doesn't work because I actually need to get paid. So we want to make sure that if anything, your pay is the first item on those costs, and then you know what your break-even amount is. You know the amount of clients that you need. There are nuances and other things you can look at here, especially if you have different services and you have different levels of payroll depending on the service. I'm doing private training and small group, and there's different pay rates. So you can factor that stuff in. If you're interested, I can share how to do that if you want to reach out to me. But for now, it's just knowing that number. And then making some goals. If you're not there already, then yeah, we have to take some action, and we need to figure out how to lower our costs or get those bodies in the door, and make sure you're not just doing that theater. Like we were talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine, and it's if you're not breaking even, like that's your business right there. Like don't do things that aren't related directly to achieving that goal. Like don't worry about all these pretty social media posts. Like let's get out the phone, invite people in, make sure that we're tracking our activity, and we're working on the skills that are needed to make that happen. And I always like to break even with your EFT, which is the amount that's coming in each month automatically. Because if you're breaking even with that, then everything else is gravy. That's a nice benchmark to hit. And we're going to talk a little bit more about KPIs in a minute, but just factor in the income that you want. I'll give you a quick example that you can figure this out with. So let's say you want to make $5,000. $5,000 doesn't mean that's all the money you're ever going to make from the business, but let's just say like as a starting point, you want to bring in $5,000 a month. Let's say that your expenses are the same as the example I just gave, so $20,000, and that's going to be $25,000 now. Instead of $20,000, it's $25,000. So we take the same math, $25,000, and we divide it by your average ticket, which we can just say it was $350 again for keep that consistent. And we need 71 clients for the business costs and for you to make $5,000. Pretty simple there. Again, make sure that just like with the financial sales target, make sure, and this is all connected, obviously, right? That's going to be related to this, but make sure that you also build in a buffer there. So if your break even is $30,000, then make sure that your goal is higher, right? $35,000, let's say. So then you have a $5,000 buffer. With that said, let's move on to the last profit lever here, which is going to be tracking what matters. I feel a little bit like a broken record because talk about these things a lot, but I really want to drive them home. And it's like, if you're not doing this, it's like, let's do it. And if you are, like, what can you do to enhance it a little bit? And a lot of that could be just spending more time reflecting, because I made the mistake in my gym ownership of doing a good job. I had my monthly sales meeting and we would go through all the KPIs, but then I would not always take the time to really sit with it, reflect, figure out, like, what am I going to do with that information? And that's a really good way to enhance it, because just remember why you're doing it. it's not just to do it, it's to actually make different decisions, take different actions. So make sure that behavior is actually changing. So I have a principle that I want to share, which is like the only KPI that matters. There's one that matters a lot. So there's so many that we could track, right? I'll just list a couple or more than a couple. There's like some of the details, like what did what kind of stuff did you sell? Did you sell front end offers? Did you sell packages? Whatever that is. Even tracking your marketing, like what did you do? There's one thing to do your marketing calendar and your marketing plan, but also tracking like what did you do for marketing, because you'll see a direct correlation between the these lead activities, right? Like actually doing the marketing with the results, like how many leads did I get? Really just tracking any activity that would lead to some of these numbers that we're looking for. Then we're looking at the number of leads or prospects. We're looking at the number of appointments booked, or sales conversations, or intros sold, if that's your next step. And then from there, it's like how many of them showed up. It's how many of them actually bought something. You're looking at your total membership sold. You're looking at your attrition. In other words, how many clients canceled. You're looking at potentially it's like memberships sold, minus memberships canceled, which would be your net membership gain, right? Another one is your total members. Again, these are all interrelated, because now your total members would be like the net result of those previous numbers I shared. How about number of referrals? Are you tracking that? That's a really important thing to track. Because it's the best form of marketing. There's on the revenue side, there's your like EFT or your auto pay revenue, really important. And then, so let me actually get to the most important KPI, which we'll call, it's basically your change in cash flow, or the delta of your cash flow. So your EFT is let's say $20,000 a month, and you sell like $5,000 in recurring revenue, however that's divided out, right? But you lost $2,000, right? So your new revenue is now $23,000, right? Started at 20, gained 25, and lost 2. So you're at 23, and there's some different things that can affect that, right? There's your new memberships, there's your lost memberships, there's also people that freeze or unfreeze, there's people that upgrade or downgrade. So you're factoring all those things in, and you are then coming up with the new number each month. So I started doing this, and I was influenced by my friend Tim Lyons, who talks about this, and we had always tracked it, but it's really looking at that specifically each month and how those other pieces affect it. And it's not magic, but it's like Pearson's law again. If I'm tracking that, it is going to improve because I'm paying attention to all those pieces. But then the only other thing I'll add is that tracking your non-auto pay revenue is also important, because that can make a huge difference. I talked before about getting to that benchmark of my auto pay covering all my expenses, including my pay, and that's a really great place to be. But then imagine if you can also sell a bunch of non-EFT things throughout the month. It just creates a lot of leverage. If you're breaking even, but then you sell some, whether that's paid in fulls or short-term programs or supplements or whatever it is that you offer, it can make a huge difference. So I think it's tracking both of those that really make the magic happen. So your action step here for the last cash flow lever is, which KPI will you start tracking that you're not, or paying more attention to that you already are. Man, I've been going here. It's been we're 40 minutes in here, and I don't want to keep you too long, but I felt like all of these were important. Got lots of more stuff in the pipeline for you to keep you focused, keep you dialed, keep you learning this stuff. I'll just end with sharing what's most important. And I shared earlier that I was kicking the can down the road. I also shared about this guy that I started working with, and that we both needed triggers, right? And this is the trigger for you. It's like the time is now. Like, what can we do today to start making money, to start putting it to use, to start making more and making a bigger impact. We think we have time, but it goes really quickly, right? You're in your 20s and everything's fine, but then things start changing, right? You get to your 30s now, maybe you're married, maybe you have some kids, maybe you got a mortgage, and you get to your 40s and it's like all the expenses go up and the responsibilities, and you maybe have aging parents and other things. So we want to make sure that we're doing this today because it's just like your clients. If you put it off, that day may never come. You may never have that same opportunity. So what can we do today to continue moving forward today, that to make tomorrow better? I hope this gets you looking at this stuff a little bit differently, making some positive changes. And hey, this is all free stuff for you, so it's a good deal. But I do appreciate your attention. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions or you just want to connect, no pressure. You're not gonna get the sales pitch, but we'd just love to connect. Feel free to reach out. If you haven't yet left a review or share this with somebody else, the podcast is finally starting to grow. It's been 6 years, and now a couple of people other than my mom and my wife are listening. So I'm super pumped about that. So please share it. This is the stuff that we need. I got a lot of work to do because this is an area that we need help with. So thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, you're listening to the Your Fitness Money Coach podcast.